Hi booktube, Aaron here, hope you're doing okay. Today I'm going to be talking a bit about what I finished reading in August, and then I'll go through some of my reading plans for September. And before I actually get into the books themselves, I've got my notebook here because there are a couple of reading challenges that I set myself at the beginning of the year, and I thought I'd go through how I'm doing with them. And they're really just another way for me to analyse and evaluate my reading throughout 2023. So the first one is an alphabet challenge. So I'm logging down the last names of all the authors that I'm reading and seeing whether I can read an author for every letter of the alphabet. And so far I've got a good number of the letters of the alphabet now, but I'm still missing authors for I, Q, U, V, X, and Y. So still a fair bit to do. I think the only letter that I've added a new author to since the last time I did an update like this is J for Tove Jansson. And I read her the first volume of her Moomin comics, I think at the end of July. And so that's sort of where the alphabet challenge is. I'm adding plenty of authors to letters I've already got, but that's okay. I'm also looking at some of the countries represented. Obviously, history sometimes makes that a little complicated, so I probably could have more for Italy, because I've got like ancient Rome and then Italy and things like that. Yeah, there's a few little inconsistencies like that where I'm just trying to work out what country I should be counting it for. So like the Czech Republic has got 3, and I'm not sure whether it should or shouldn't, but I thought I'd give it to them. But yeah, still in the lead is the UK. The US is close behind, and then the next after them is France. It's a relatively unadventurous, but in the last couple of months I've added Japan and Portugal, the Czech Republic, Argentina, and Finland are generating a few authors as well. And then surprise, English is still the most represented original language of all the books I'm reading. And again, French is close behind. And just behind that, we've got German and Russian. And yeah, Japanese and Swedish have been added recently. So I'll go through a proper wrap-up of all of this at the end of the year. But yeah, at least for me, I think it's fun to just sort of check in on it from time to time. In terms of reading, I finished 6 books in August. I am having trouble actually just remembering where I am in the year. But yeah, August was a really good reading month. I got plenty of things finished where I've been wanting to read them for a while. There was one unexpected but really joyfully unexpected thing in there as well. The first one is the only one that's for a reading event, and that's Absalom by William Faulkner. I talked about this a bit in a recent reading video, so I won't go into it too much, but I wasn't a particularly good participant. I just wanted to, once I'd kind of found the pace, once I thought I found a pace, I wanted to stick to it. So I didn't stretch it out through the whole month. I read it in a week or two. But I thought it was interesting. It's still not my favourite Faulkner, but it was a really interesting book. And then the landmark really for my reading in August was finishing In Search of Lost Time, or Remembrance of Things Past by Marcel Proust. Having finished it, I am feeling like that the title In Search of Lost Time for the English translation is better, and just since the idea of lost time becomes more and more important as you get closer to the end. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and as you've probably already seen, I've been making a few videos about Proust. I've had my Proust vlog, and I've made and I'm planning to put up a video on just whether Proust is actually worth it, whether the toil of reading those sort of 3,000 to 4,000 pages is actually worth it. Yeah, I certainly enjoyed it, and it was Proust is still occupying a large portion of my brain at the moment, so yeah, I don't think it's something I'll be forgetting anytime soon. And then after finishing Proust, I really just felt like indulging myself, and for me, one of my newfound pleasures in reading is travel writing, and this year that's been particularly through Patrick Leigh Fermor, and I finally got around to reading A Time of Gifts earlier this year, and this is the book following on from that. So this is Between the Woods and the Water, and it's mainly in Hungary and Transylvania, and I think by the end of the book he's where is he again? It'd be really useful. This one doesn't have a map. The first one does have a map, so you can actually see his journey. But I think he is. Where is he? He's certainly sort of on the edge of the Balkans, essentially. So it's another sort of cultural and sort of topographical change that he's sort of on the cusp of as the book finishes. I'm a bit concerned about what the last book is going to be like, since I know that it came out after he died, and he didn't finish it, so it's sort of anything he didn't finish was sort of compiled and sort of put together by an editor from his notes and stuff like that. So if it is anything like the first two, then I'm sure I'm going to love it, but there's a bit of a concern there. And then after that, a book that I think I picked up in August and just couldn't wait to read. And that's A History of Reading by Alberto Manuel, and it's just great. It kind of is what it says on the tin. It's not the history of reading. It's not a definitive history of this phenomenon, but it's a history of reading. It's sort of his look at what it is to read, the sort of cultural significance, how we treat books in our lives, how it turns up in art, what it is to be seen reading a certain book, or just possessing a certain book at a certain time. So it's really, really fascinating, and there's also lots of stuff about categorising books. I'll just read you a paragraph on that, which I thought was really, really good. So he says, rooms, corridors, bookcases, shelves, filing cards, and computerized catalogues assume that the subjects on which our thoughts dwell are actual entities, and through this assumption, a certain book may be lent a particular tone and value. Filed under fiction, Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels is a humorous novel of adventure. Under sociology, a satirical study of England in the 18th century. Under children's literature, an entertaining fable about dwarves and giants and talking horses. Under fantasy, a precursor of science fiction. Under travel, an imaginary voyage. Under classics, a part of the Western literary canon. Categories are exclusive. Reading is not, or should not be. Whatever classifications have been chosen, every library tyrannizes the act of reading and forces the reader, the curious reader, the alert reader, to rescue the book from the category to which it has been condemned. Which I thought was really, really fascinating, and yeah, just really, really sort of well put. And I suppose, yeah, the way we categorise a book quite often is just a way of being able to just very, very quickly, at a glance, say what it is and what its purpose is in a certain context. You didn't really go into it, but I suppose also marketing is increasingly a large part of it as well. But that was particularly in my mind with the whole what makes a classic tag that was going around, and so I was already thinking about how we categorize reading, what a classic is and what it means for a book to be thought of in a certain way, and so it was just sort of fascinating to come across that at that time as well. And then the next one is one that I've been working on, I think, for pretty much the whole of the month. I might have started it in July. I'll have to double check, but it's Richard Zenith's Pessoa, An Experimental Life, and it was really, really good. There were parts that they didn't necessarily drag, that would be wrong to say, but I just suppose because Pessoa's sort of external day-to-day life was in a way quite mundane. You wouldn't really notice him on the street, and so in that sense, there is plenty to talk about, but it's just fairly repetitive. He was a serial procrastinator as well, so that becomes just increasingly frustrating the older he gets. But then his imaginary life was just so big, and just kind of so unlike anyone else, and so maybe even calling it an imaginary life is a little disrespectful. I don't know, but yeah, I did enjoy it. I think as well it's just sometimes it is difficult with a biography this size. There's only so much of the life I feel I can take in, and so that element of it was difficult, but it's definitely not a fault of the book. It's just something that I'm aware of in my reading of it, if that makes any sense. And then the last one I finished was Apocalypse, an anthology of apocalyptic poetry, edited by James Keery. And on the whole, this was really, really good. I've talked about it a fair bit, and I've done an Apocalyptic Poetry Thursday to sort of sample one of the poems in here. A lot of them are very dark, but kind of weird and wacky as well. Obviously, with the sort of the name of the movement, there's often a religious undercurrent, but sometimes it's actually more of an anti-religious undercurrent. So there's a lot to sort of think about, and lots of things sort of bashing together in this anthology. Really, the only gripe in here is that there are quite a lot of just sort of sections of longer poems in here, and as a preference for me, I would have probably preferred either I don't know, if it was a poem that sort of split up into sections, that might make sense. But really, I would prefer either the whole long poem included in the anthology, or just sort of left out entirely. Because with some of them, I just felt like, because you have here's one of them. You just have these brackets here, and you do feel, it does feel sort of disjointed as you're reading it, at least for me. So, that was the only gripe I had with it. There are plenty of poets that I had no idea about. So Robert Conquest, I hadn't really looked into before. D.S. Savage, Julian Ord, he does ring a bell. I think I have read something by him before. Dorian Cook, I liked. Who else is in here? Audrey Beecham. I hadn't come across Audrey Beecham before. And there are poems by Leigh, and I always had a more almost pastoral view of Leigh, so that was quite cool. Elizabeth Smart's, that was good. The Singing Summer Streets. So yeah, there's sometimes a kind of sort of weird sort of mythical haze over the poem. or sometimes it's trying to convey the sort of horror of either the First or the Second World War. So not always the happiest poems, but there's a sort of energy to them that in a certain dose is quite interesting. And then hopefully very quickly, then I'll just go through what I want to read in September. Still forgetting where in the year I am. And there are a couple of reading events that I've managed to sort of include in here. The first one is Shorty September, and I'm not going to try and complete all the prompts, but this certainly fits within its remit, and it's The Nightingales Are Drunk by Hafez, in one of these nice little penguin black classics. And he's a Persian poet. It says on the back he's from the 14th century, and it says spiritual, sensual verses on love, heartbreak, and celebrating life's small pleasures. So yeah, I know pretty much nothing about this poet, and almost nothing about Persian poetry, so I'm looking forward to learning more. But yeah, I just picked it up because I found the title quite amusing and quite charming. So we'll see what I think of Hafez. It's only sort of 40 odd pages, so it's sort of just dipping my toe into this sort of new world of poetry for me. And then in September it's Shakespeare as well, so we've got a lot of Shakespeare in store for us this month. And I'd already got my heart set on reading Hamlet. Earlier this year I picked up this Oxford World Classics edition, and it's got a massive introduction. I think it's like over 100 pages long, and there are plenty of pages where it seems like there's almost more sort of footnotes than there is actual text. So there'll be plenty for me to sink my teeth into here. So I'm going to do that with Hamlet, and maybe go through it quite slowly. But there are some sort of set plays that the hosts have decided that they're going to be reading, and they're going to be making videos about it. And so I might try and join in with one or two of those. I was also planning on reading a biography of Shakespeare, but I think since finishing Proust and the Zenith biography of Pessoa, I don't really want to get into any really massive books right now. And as well, I don't want to go into particularly any massive literary biographies. I think I'll sort of burn out if I try to do that. So that'll have to be some other time. But I might try and get to one of the other plays if there's a gap in my reading at some point in the month. Then I got a reading event it's not really a booktube reading event, but I'd seen it on Instagram, and it's organised by, I think they're called, it's Honors College in the US. I think they're in Texas, and they've got a thing called 100 Days of Dante, and it's free to sign up to. And I'd forgotten that I'd signed up to it, so it wasn't something I was immediately thinking I'd be doing in September. But a few days ago I got the first email, and I remembered. So I decided to pick it up and just go through with it. So I'll be reading the Divine Comedy over 100 days, and it'll be quite slow. I might not read a canto a day. I might just sort of catch up on cantos every now and then. And as well, I think because they send out an email to you with a few questions, sort of study questions for the canto, as well as like a link to a video from a professor, or I think they've even got priests talking about each canto. So it's like a different person for every canto. Yeah, I'm just taking it really slowly. I'm up to canto 4 at the moment, and I'm just going slowly. I'm asking questions, and I am trying to learn at least some Italian at the moment as well. I don't plan to be a great Italian speaker or reader, but I'd like at least a little bit of familiarity with Italian. So I'm because this is a parallel translation, I'm also sort of circling familiar words and trying to guess what certain things mean, and then I'll see if I'm right. So that's sort of an added bonus to the experience with reading Dante at the moment. Then a few more things. For a while I've been in the mood to just jump right into some more stuff by Italo Calvino and A History of Reading by Manuel. Really, I don't know, just stoked the fire, I suppose, in that regard. So I've got a couple that I haven't got to yet by him. And there's If on a Winter's Night a Traveller, which I just started today, and I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of it. It's been really, really, really fun and just delightful in a way that I think only Calvino can be delightful. And I've also got Invisible Cities as well, which is Marco Polo and Genghis Khan in conversation about these imaginary sort of cities. So yeah, that sounds really, really good as well. And it is slim, but I don't think it counts. Actually, this might count. Yeah, this one actually does qualify for Shorty September. And I think this next one will as well. Yeah, this one will qualify as well. This is Like by A.E. Stallings, and it'll be a reread for me. Something that I've been really enjoying this year is going back to poets and poetry collections I've enjoyed in the past and reappraising them and giving them another go, whether I liked them or not. And this one I did really, really like. And so I think it'll just be a pleasure to spend sort of more time with A.E. Stallings. And so far, this is all I have. Even though she is a very well respected poet, at least around here, I find her hard to find in bookshops. But I'm hoping at some point in the near future to get out to a bookshop that specialises a little more in poetry, and I'll see if I can find any more of her stuff there. And then the last thing that I'm hoping to get to in September, again, something I've been wanting to do for quite a while. One of my aims for the year is to read the major works of Sir Thomas Browne. And I don't know whether I'll read them in order. I think I'll actually read the introduction once I've actually read the whole thing. But yeah, I think I'll just go where, with whatever sort of takes my fancy at any given time. I'm not planning to finish the whole thing in September, but I'm hoping to at least read a few of these essays, I suppose. And yeah, I'm just excited to get to him. I know this is in this page is sort of photographed or photocopied in The Rings of Saturn by Sebald. So I think that might have been the first place I encountered Sir Thomas Browne was in Sebald, and then he turns up in Borges. He turns up in Underland by Robert Macfarlane and plenty of other places. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually getting to the man himself and what he wrote. But there we go. That is everything I read in, where are we? in August, and that's everything I'm planning to read in September. September's always a fun month. So normally in the first month of the year, I go on a camping holiday with my parents and siblings and such, and we normally it's a lot of fun, and camping isn't always the best sort of reading situation. Last year it was very, very wet, but this year, for sort of various reasons, we're not actually camping. We've all decided to stay in a cottage together, so I might be able to get a bit more reading done. And it might be a bit, the reading might be a bit random. I might actually decide to read something totally different. But I'll be bringing Hafez and some Calvino and probably Hamlet along with me. and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that's what my September is looking like. I hope that you've had a lovely summer and that you're feeling good as we're slowly making our way towards autumn. And so yeah, for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.